Wow! 3 shots. It's under .100 for sure. I gotta go measure that. Jesus. Hey guys, this is Tim with Little Crow Gunworks. Welcome back to the channel. We're finally getting back around to the 22 Nosler project. We had quite a long break from it. We ran up against hunting season, and we had a lot of projects and custom rifles for clients that we had to finish up. So that kind of put a dent in our timeline for the 22 Nosler project. But we're getting back around to it, and we have since cropped the barrel down to 25 inches. Remember, we finalized our loads with 28-inch barrel, and we did our dwell time testing at 28, and now we're down to 25 inches. And this time we cut it off the breech end, so we cut the chamber off, rethreaded, reshouldered, rechambered, so we have a fresh chamber in there. The barrel has, I think, about 800 or 900 rounds on it. So we kind of have to do a primitive break-in. We don't necessarily believe in breaking in barrels. Our version of break-in is you clean it after it's machined, you go out, shoot it a little bit, don't get in a hurry, don't get it hot, stuff like that. Just very simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to harvest some group and velocity data using the Factory Ammo, our 85 grain Nosler RDF, and see what we get for velocity for this at this new barrel length compared to our 28 and 31 inch barrel lengths. And we're also going to see how it groups at this barrel length to see if it likes this Factory Ammo better or worse than when we had longer barrel lengths. So because we have a fresh chamber in there, it's going to take a little bit for the rifle to come in, I think. I haven't shot it yet. I cleaned it, but I haven't shot it yet. So these will be the first rounds. So what we're going to do is we're going to shoot six groups of 5 with the Factory Ammo and see how the groups kind of come together and how the velocity levels out, because we want to make sure that the barrel is good and seasoned before we test our 4 polished hand loads that we had. So we're going to shoot those as well. So we'll do 6 groups of 5 with the factory, and then 1 group of 5 with each of the 4 hand loads, and we'll see how they do. Now keep in mind, all those loads were developed in the summer when it was much warmer. We're finally getting back around to this. I think today is January 3rd, and it's unseasonably warm here in Minnesota. It's like 30 degrees today, and we still don't have any snow on the ground. So we're trying to take advantage of it. So I'm not going to have any shooting footage here other than just me getting started. But because it is January, it's not very nice out. But I want to get this testing done, and then we'll review everything back at the bench. Alright, we're back at the bench here. Oh baby, this thing still shoots. So that first group that you saw in the teaser, I guess let's talk about that first. That was the N550 daily driver that from part 12, that's the load I used when I won the varmint match. And now that we cropped the barrel down to 25 inches and have fresh chamber, fresh throat, I just wanted to see how these loads hold up. Didn't modify the loads at all. It's the same thing we were using when the barrel was 28. So went out and tested. We shot the factory ammo and shot these other loads. But I guess we'll talk about that first. So this was the Daily Driver N550 load, and those first 3 shots, best guess was 20 thousandths of an inch, maybe less. It's basically the same size as if you poked a bullet through the cardboard and then kind of wiggled it a little bit. That's how big it was. And I almost wanted to stop and not keep shooting, but I decided to go on with it because I wanted to get 5-shot group data. And the 4th shot went to the left here and opened it up to a .219, so shot a 219. And then the 5th shot went back in the original hole. So just killer performance. But all right, so I guess we'll talk about the factory ammo first. You know, I went there to test all this, and I didn't think about the fact that, you know, we basically have a new gun. We cut the chamber off, and I didn't think about the fact that I was going to have to re-zero it. So I get set up and I line up on this dot to start shooting the factory ammo, and the first shot goes over here. So that's what this piece of tape is. I covered up the first bullet hole, and I was like, all right, that's right. Yeah, I'm going to have to re-zero. So I went onto a different sheet and re-zeroed, and then came back to this. And by the time I started shooting groups with the factory ammo, I think it took me 4 or 5 shots to get it zeroed. So it had a little bit of falling in it, and kind of started to round off where that where the lead is, where the chamber reamer meets the lands and grooves. And what I've noticed with brand new barrels is, like, the first handful of shots will be the fastest because there's the most resistance and drag as it's kind of rounding over that lead angle. So the first handful of shots I did catch with the lab radar, and they were at like 2830 feet a second, 2820, somewhere in there. And then by the time I started shooting groups, it had leveled out at a lower velocity. So we'll go through that. So the aggregate group size for these was .729. So .729 was the average for all 6 groups. And then the velocities, they started out, the average for this one was 2797, 2799, and then 2792, 92, 92, and 93. So after the first 2, I mean, even being 5 to 7 feet a second away, that's not much, but it got super consistent as we went across here. And I wouldn't say the groups got better as we went across, but they were very consistent. So and of all the 3 barrel lengths we tested, for group size, this was the best, followed by the 31-inch. The 28-inch I don't think got a fair shake, because if you remember, before I tested the 28, I did this where I shot 6 groups of 5. I just really scrubbed the barrel and then started shooting groups right away, and the groups were super short. They were only they're averaging like under a ½ inch of vertical, but they were wide. They were like 1.25 inches wide, where it would shoot 4 tight like this, and then it would throw 1, and then shoot 4 tight, and then throw 1. So it was a lot of that. So the 28-inch, I don't really feel good about that group data. I think had I not really scrubbed it, it probably would have shot a little better. But anyway, for group sizes, it seemed to like this the most. And then the velocity metrics, as far as standard deviation and extreme spread, they were very similar to how it's been shooting. They were better than when it was 28 and 31, but similar, where the average SD is, you know, kind of around that like 11 to 12 area, and the extreme spread was in the 30 to 40 area. So a little better than how it had been shooting, but still it's factory ammo, you know, and it's ball powder and mass produced and all that. So it's not going to be as consistent as a hand load that you're diligent about making consistent. But anyway, still shot pretty good overall. Let's talk about velocity decay. So that was interesting to find, because we have 31-inch, 28, and 25-inch data. We were able to see how the velocity decayed. And 31-inch, this ammo is, again, the Nosler Factory 85 grain RDF. 31-inch barrel, it averaged 2905 feet a second. When we cropped it to 28, it only dropped down to 2890. So it only lost like 15 feet a second total, or 5 feet a second per inch. And I had, most of that data was in the summer, so I feel good that that wasn't weather related. It was just, that was the velocity loss for crop in the barrel. And now that we cut it to 25, it's January and it's cold out, so some of that loss is due to temperature and the fact that this is a ball powder, which are typically not temperature stable. So from 28 to 25, it lost just under 100 feet a second, like 96 feet a second. So if we say that, you know, even half of that, because the difference between testing at 28 and 25 inches was probably 50 degrees Fahrenheit for the air temperature. So if we say even 1 foot per second per degree, that would account for 50 feet a second of that, and then the remaining 50 or so would be due to barrel length, which is around like 16 feet per second per inch, which is worth noting, but it's not a ton. And I kind of predicted that I think in the first video where I said, you know, they're trying to get their velocity out of a really short barrel, so they probably use the fast burning powder, and the fast burning powder's barrel length isn't as critical once you start getting long. That fast burning powder doesn't help you as much as an appropriate slower burning powder would. So I kind of figured that would happen. I was surprised to see that between 28 and 31, that extra 3 inches accounted for almost zero velocity gain. That was surprising. But I did expect it to escalate as we went shorter. You know, the shorter and shorter you go, the more you lose per inch. And, you know, 16 feet per second between 28 and 25. If we went 25 to 22, it'd be even more. Spoiler alert, we decided we're not going to crop it to 22 because the velocity loss for the hand loads are a lot more significant than we thought it was going to be. And if we go from 25 to 22, we're going to lose more velocity than we're willing to lose. So we're going to stop the testing at the 25-inch length here. And this gun, once we're done with it, it's going to be relegated to a company Prairie Dog rifle for the rest of its barrel life. So we don't want to lose any more velocity than we already have. All right, so I think we can talk about the hand loads now. So this was the 4 loads that I had polished over the summer. You guys saw on all the videos how well all of those shot. Especially videos 8 and 12, where in part 8 we shoot this at 640, part 9 we shoot this load at 1030, and then part 12 we shoot these 3 loads at 640 and 1030 in the same video. And you can see that all of them just hammer. So I didn't want to mess with those. I just wanted to crop the barrel to 25, and even though it's a new chamber, which means the throat's in a different place than where these were developed, and everything's different, it's basically a new gun. I didn't want to mess with the loads. I just wanted to see how robust they were, where we could throw them in essentially a new gun at a different barrel length and see how they shoot. And of the 4, I would say this one, the N540 sports car, was the most robust, where it shot super small at 31. At 28, we never even shot it at 100 or 200 yards because we knew it hammered at 31. By hammered, I mean I didn't stretch it out at 31, but at 200 yards, it shot a 5-shot group that was .530. And you guys have seen that group before. I might throw it in the video again here, but half-inch group for 5 shots at 200 yards. That's hammering by anybody's standards. Even the bench rest guys, on a windy day, they're happy to shoot a half-inch group for 5 shots in their national level matches. So really good. And then when we cropped it to 28, we only shot it at long range and it hammered, and now we cropped it to 25, and we'll get into those numbers, but you can see it's small. So the first one, N540 Daily Driver, that one, and for whatever reason, the lab radar doesn't like these 22 caliber ELD bullets. It tends to miss them a lot. So these 85 grain RDFs, it caught every one. All the ones I used to sight in, and all 30 of these caught every one, didn't miss one. This one, right out of the gate, it missed the first 2. So I only have 3 out of 5 shots for this one. 4 out of 5, 4 out of 5. This one I did catch all 5 out of the 5. But the velocity metric stayed similar as when the barrel was 28 inches. So this first load, 27.7 grains N540, same seating depth we've been using. Velocity average was 29.12. And that one, we don't have 31-inch data. We have 28-inch data, which was the average was 30.37, and then it went all the way down to 29.12 when we cut 3 inches off. Now there's a temperature difference there too, but that's 125 feet a second. And these are all temperature stable extruded powders, so if we say that 50-degree temperature difference accounts for, let's say, half a foot per second per degree, so the 50 degrees is worth 25 feet a second, this load still lost 100 feet a second, going from 28 to 25. That's a lot. 33 feet a second per inch. And this N540 is a step faster than N550, so you would expect the N550 to have more velocity loss, but it ended up being very similar. Almost across the board, all of these lost 100 feet a second between 28 and 25. It's a lot. 100 plus. So this group is, you got 4 tight here and a nice little Y, and then it threw 1 out. And if you remember from when it was 28 inches, that's about how that load shot. I had 4 different seating depths in a row. I had about an 8 thousandths window of seating depth, where every 2 thousandths I shot a group, and all the groups were 5/8 of an inch, which is 0.625. This group was 0.736. I went back and subsequently shot these again the next day, and the second time around it shot a 715. So again, very similar. 4 together and 1 out. And then SD 5.44, ES at 12 for 3 shots. Really good. Next one, N540 sports car, which is 28.46 grains. Caught 4 of these shots. Average velocity was 3001. SD 4.87, ES at 13, and that group is at 383. So just over 1/3 of an inch. And then again, subsequently went back and shot it again, and this group is even smaller. That's a 282 for 5 shots. So just frickin' hammers. Group's good, velocity metric's good. This one shot, we did shoot this one at all 3 barrel lengths. They're at 31 inches. The velocity average was 31.35. And then when we went to 28, and it went to 31.05. So we only lost 30 feet a second. They were both shot in the summer. So that's only 10 feet per second per inch. But then from 28 to 25, it lost 104 feet a second. So if we say 25 feet a second again for the temperature difference, that's still 75 feet a second total loss, or 25 feet per second per inch. But despite the fact that we changed the barrel length, that's how this load shot at all 3 barrel lengths. Didn't matter. Worn in throat, or relatively new throat at 31 inches, worn in throat at 28 inches, new throat at 25 inches. Didn't matter. Just frickin' hammers. This load was the N550 daily driver, which was 29.5 grains. That's what I won the varmint match with. Not because it shot this small, because it didn't shoot this small when the barrel was 28 inches. It shot bigger than this. But it just didn't do anything stupid. It was pretty consistent. I talk to the guys at this varmint match, and I tell them that all the time. It's like, you don't need a load that puts them all in the same hole. You need a load that doesn't do anything stupid for 10 shots in a row, because they're 10-shot matches. You got 2 sighters and then 10 in a row. So it doesn't have to be the best load there ever was, but it just can't throw any if you want to be really competitive. So this one caught 4 shots. Velocity was super consistent also. So this one, the average was 29.26, SD of 4.82, ES of 12. And that's, again, that little bitty group, that's a 219. And then I went back. I know that's in any given Sunday group. You're not going to be able to shoot those all the time. I went back and shot it again, and it opened up quite a bit more. So the second time around, it shot this group, which is a 618, so a little under 5/8. This one that's down here by itself, I don't think that was me. I mean, I might have pulled it. It didn't feel great when I let it go, but even so, if it was up here with the rest of them, the group opened up to, 7/16 or something like that, which is more typical of what you would expect. You're not going to ever find a gun, well, unless it's a bench rest gun, but you're rarely going to find a gun that can go out and shoot 219s all the time. It's just for 5 shots. It just doesn't happen. 3 shots, maybe, but 5, it just doesn't happen that often, unless it's a bench rest gun. What else? So the velocity decay on this one, we only have 28 and 25 inch data, and that lost exactly 100 feet a second. So it was at 28, it was 3,026, and now it's 29.26 at 25 inches. Again, 25 feet a second for temperature. That means it lost 25 feet a second per inch of barrel. Then the final load, the N550 sports car. This is the one that I said if I had to pick one of the 4 when it was at 28 inch barrel length, that's the one I would pick. That shot that little... when I talk about stuff like this with people, I'll reference it to credit cards at distance if I've done it, where I'll say that load will stack 5 on a credit card at X distance. If you remember from part 12, the target that was up here in the corner where it shot that little itty bitty group, you could cover that 5-shot group with a credit card, and it was at 640 yards. So this one shot much better than this at 100 yards for 3 shots. I have that data too. So when we tested this and we were doing 3-shot groups, the sports car was this one where it shot .271 for 3 shots with really good velocity numbers. And then the daily driver was up here, that shot a 350, again with really good velocity numbers. So, maybe it's double grouping, so there's 3 bullets in this hole and 2 in that hole, and maybe that's just because, it's a new throat, where I could probably pull those together if I played with seating depth to try to bring it back in. Because the velocity numbers are really good, it's not worth messing with powder charge in an instance like this, where I said all 4 loads, some I caught 3 shots, some I caught 4, some I caught 5, but the ES on all of them was 12, 13, 12, 13. When your ES is down around 10 feet a second, you don't really need to mess with your powder charge anymore. And if your groups aren't where you want them, you clean that up with seating depth. So I could play with this and try to pull it together, but at this point in the testing, I don't think there's any value in that. I'm just going to take these loads, now that I have a good 0, take them out, stretch them out at the farm, try to get them on paper again at 640, and then maybe shoot steel at 1,030 like we did in part 12. This load, we don't have 31 inch data, just 28 and 25, but same deal, it lost 90 feet a second. So it was 3130 was the average when it was 28 inches, and now it's down to 3040. So 90 feet a second. So of the 4, I would say it lost the least velocity, which is weird because it's the highest charge, the slowest burning powder of these, so you would think it would lose the most. So I thought that was a little bit weird, but maybe that's just a weird anomaly. And then this one, so this group is a 688, even though it double grouped, it's still barely over 5/8 of an inch. And then when I went back and shot it again, it shot better. It shot this group, and that is a 451. So sub ½ inch for 5 shots. That's hammering by pretty much anybody's standards. So they're all still shooting really good, which I was happy to see that the loads are fairly robust, especially this one. And I think they're all going to perform well at distance. It'll just be nice to get them out there and get some numbers and kind of put a bow on this testing so we have all the data together, and I might do a review on that. That is something that all of the data, all the load data, this and that, we're going to offer as a package when guys do buy these rifles. If they want that data, that'll be a separate package where the finished product rifles, you'll see how they shoot. I'm going to do a video on that where we got 2 of them in the queue to be built, and I'll test these loads and those guns. And if I have to tweak the seating depth to get it to up to my standards, that data will be available for people that are buying the rifle and also want the package, where I'm going to have all the data on an Excel spreadsheet with multiple pages and all of our testing, and we'll send it on a thumb drive along with the gun. So what's next? So this is part 13. Part 14, I'm going to try to get out to the range, not out to the range, out to the farm and shoot these at distance. It's been below zero for the last week and a half, but I think we have some 30, almost 40 degree weather coming next week, which is weird for late January in Minnesota, but I'll take it. It'll allow me to get out and shoot these at long range, and hopefully Dale's got time to get those first 2 finished product rifles together so I can get those out and test them as well. And then I'll do like a showcase video on them so you can see what they look like, and I'll give you all the specs and everything that went into them, all the parts and all that stuff, so you know what they are, and we'll see how they shoot and how they perform. And then they'll be available for purchase. We do have parts to make 2 more, and we're trying to get a supply chain of parts coming, so that way when guys do want one of these, we can keep the lead time as short as possible. And if you want to change something about the way I did them, obviously we can build you anything you want. I just tried to make an educated guess at what I think guys would want for something like this. But, you know, everybody likes different things, so we can build you anything you want, but this is just what we decided to throw at the wall first and see what sticks. They're all good components, and the rifles are going to shoot great. I'm not worried about that, but, you know, sometimes guys like different colors or different this or different that. Even different triggers, so we'll figure that out. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, I guess. But I think that's all I have for this one. I don't know if there's any questions you guys have. Hit me up in the comments. You guys know I try to follow those and get everybody an answer if they have a question. So I think that's it for this one. So like, subscribe, share with your friends, all that good stuff, and we'll see you on the next one out at the farm. Thanks.